This week we're going to look at something that I got this advice when I was a young athlete, when I had coaches, when even my PE teacher at school used to say this to me, that you shouldn't have your hands on your knees, you should stand with your back straight, hand on heads to recover after any exercise, whether we were doing football, rugby, tennis, badminton, whatever it may be. The advice was always the same from the coach. And when you're really young, you just take that advice as gospel and you just follow it because you don't know any better and you believe your coach is giving you the best advice. But as I pointed out earlier in the week with some content that I put out earlier in the week, coaches still give this advice for the reasoning that hands on knees makes you look weak, makes you look tired, and therefore the opponent somehow is going to look at you and think, oh, well, this person's super tired, so I'll be easily able to win against them because they're super tired. And they're not standing with this kind of more positive power kind of stance and posture to purvey that they aren't tired. And I think this needs to come out of coaching. This needs to be something that we draw out of our coaching vernacular and put something else in there instead. Because I think there's an underlying message here of like looking positive, looking like you're still keen to play, you're still keen to remain in the stronghold and win the game, or you're still keen to get back into the game and maybe get a goal back, maybe get into a winning position. So I understand the kind of body language aspect to this that might be underlying this kind of advice, but the actual advice itself is saying that this is not a good way to recover, which is therefore bad, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what the science actually says about why your body might be looking to get into this position to recover, what is a natural thing for us to do. You see players like Messi do all the time, Haaland, Ronaldo, other great midfielders and strikers all adopt this position naturally. So why are they doing it if it's not good? So like I say, we're going to look into the science of this, the breathing mechanics, why your body might be adopting this. So without any further ado, let's get into this. We're going to take a look at this study right here done in 2019. We're going to take some information from it because it looks at football players, soccer players specifically, and we're going to look at what the data actually shows here. Now they looked at female soccer players, so we can extrapolate this for both genders. We're going to speak gender neutrally here, but it was looking specifically at female soccer players. And they looked at hands on head, hands on knees. Was there a difference in recovery? Is there a measurable difference? So that we should be given the advice that hands on knees is better or hands on head is better. What they showed was that the athletes that were using hands on their knees to recover had a greater reduction in their heart rate. They were able to get their heart rate under control a lot quicker. They also had a better tidal volume, so the amount of air that is coming in and out, and this meant they had better CO2 clearance as well in the hands on knee position than the hands on head position. So not only did objectively the feeling of recovering better happen with hands on knees, but measurably scientific measurements could be taken to show that it actually was a superior way for these athletes to recover after doing high intensity exercise, high intensity interval exercises, which is exactly what football is. It's not one long sprint, it's not one short sprint, it's multiple sprints, multiple directions in different angles, while scanning for your own teammates, while scanning where the ball is, where the opponents are, everything else that goes into it. So this actually showed that there was a measurable difference and the hands on knees was superior. Now why is that? Now I was actually going to just get into the science here, but actually do this really quick. Pause this video, or as I'm talking right here, go back and watch this again. We're going to do this together. So first I want you to do hands on your head, do 5 breaths, hands on your knees, do 5 breaths, and then feel the difference. Actually feel the difference. Before we get into the science of why this is correct, just feel the difference and then we'll get into the actual science behind it. Do it with me right now. So we're going to just do hands on head, hands up, like you're told when your old coaches, hand on head, top of the head, breathe in, 5 breaths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then do your hands on your knees. Get your hands on your knees and do 5 breaths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it, that's simple. Do 5 breaths on either of those, pause the video, go back, listen to me count again, and tell me how you feel in the comments below. A big thing that we look at when we're looking at football is exactly this. The best way to stave off fatigue, that lactic acid buildup, those lactic acid thresholds, to stave off this lactic buildup and stuff like that for as long as possible, so you can perform at your best, so you can stay aerobic for as long as possible, which is the gold standard of how you're going to be performing at your best. How do you stave that off? You need to be able to recover as optimally as you can in those small moments in a game. In a 90-minute game, when you're sprinting, changing directions, passing the ball, you might be going long distance, you might be sprinting in a curve, you might be sprinting at various different degrees, when you're tackling, when you're receiving the ball, when you're scanning the pitch for not only where your teammates are, but where the ball is, where the ball's at your feet, where it's going to go to, where your opponent is, where they might be moving to. You're making all these calculations continuously in a 90-minute game. It's not just the physical engine that needs to run to keep you moving for the game and covering that mileage, but it's also the amount of brain power you need. And as your brain takes about 20% of the oxygen you're breathing in every time, you need to make sure that you're getting enough in there to do it. So as the game goes on, it gets later and fatigue starts to set in, we're looking at ways to stave off that as optimally as possible. And so if hands on knees is going to offer you a 1% difference, then that's 1% better than someone else that's not doing it, but their hands on head because they want to have this big, strong, macho posture that's going to show they're not tired. But you're recovering better with your hands on your knees. So this is why it's important to implement this into our games and not feel a guilt for doing it, or that it shows weakness. And this is why I'm saying it needs to come out of that vernacular of coaching, that language we use in coaching, and use a different language so that they're recovering better, also showing their opponent that they're ready to rock and roll, and they are more than in this game. Now this is where it gets interesting, because it is something we naturally want to do. When you're a child and you're looking to recover after an exercise, you naturally get into this lean forward, hands on knee position. It's not something you're necessarily taught, it's not something that you necessarily learn as you get older neither. And like I say, most of the time, because we've been coached by PE teachers, coaches and stuff when we're younger, we believe it's not the optimal position. But even you'll see recreational runners, or when people start running, they'll adopt this position straight away. So it's naturally something people want to lean into. And why is that? Well, part of the breathing mechanics is that you need to be able to recruit the diaphragm as optimally as possible so that you can get the blood pumping and get lactic acid out, but also oxygen in and CO2 out as well. And the best way to oxygenate your muscle is having that diaphragm in a optimal position. So if your hands on your head, this is going to mean that you're going to bring the hands up to the head, which is going to compress the back upper part of the rib cage, because of where the scapulars are going to move to. We can get deeper into that science another time, but for the sake of this video, that's going to add a restriction in that upper part, which means you're going to lift the chest, you're going to lift the rib cage so that you can breathe and recover better, because you've just done interval sprinting and you're breathing hard, you're panting away. So your body's going to figure out a new mechanism, and it's going to lift the rib cage, which is going to flatten that diaphragm. Once that diaphragm flattens, it can't be recruited mechanically as optimally, so that you can't recover as well. But then when we flip it on its head here and we look at hands on knees, the opposite's happening. When you put your hands on your knees, this means you have a better relationship between that the abdominal wall, your rib cage, and your diaphragm. So the slightly leaning forward on your hands and knees means that the six-pack abs, the abs that run along the front, are going to be pulled away slightly from the rib cage, and they're going to, like a piston in a car, they're going to create that chamber a lot more, and give room for the diaphragm to flex outwards. You'll be able to recruit the diaphragm a lot better because the rib cage has no restrictions, or less restrictions, should I say. It's never zero, is it? But it has less restrictions on it, so then therefore it can be, all the system can be recruited a lot better, and therefore you're going to recover a lot better. At least this is what the study is showing. This is what other studies have shown as well. I'm not saying that this is verbatim every single time, but this is the difference in mechanics, and this is why the mechanics for hands on knees is looking superior and something that you should not feel guilty about adopting. This study that we're looking at didn't exactly look at these and measure these exact measurements in terms of the zone of apposition, which is the room that your diaphragm sits in inside your rib cage, or ZOA. This zone is how optimally, or mechanically optimally, your diaphragm can move. Now, this study didn't exactly look and didn't exactly measure this, but one conclusion we can draw this from anatomy, biology, and other research that we have seen, and also anecdotal evidence in our personal experiences. This leaning forward slightly leads to more thoracic flexion of the thoracic part of your spine, so that mid part of your spine, which means the cavity at the back part of your rib cage is a very big space, And so when it's allowed without restriction to breathe into it, there's actually a lot of room there to breathe in, where you can improve these tidal volumes, and you can improve the CO2 clearance, which is what we see measured in this study. So we're connecting these dots just together here. We can see what they're measuring in the study. We know from previous experience and from biology that this exists. So we're connecting these dots together here that this study didn't really to look at. It was outside of the parameters, so they didn't really bother looking at it. So this improves that zone of apposition in the diaphragm, and there's a better zone recruitment there. Often you can see this zone become quite poor if someone has rib flare, so where the rib cage is shunted forward, so you get those ribs come up. You quite often see these like elephant tusk like poking outside of the ribs when they were just stood up normally. That's rib flare, and this means that you can't get as good a recruitment from the diaphragm. So improving that zone of apposition by having your hands on knees means you get more mechanical value from your diaphragm, and it's able to create more pressure in the chamber. So like I said before about the piston, about having this nice cylinder to create the pressure, improving the zone of apposition by being hands on knees is going to give you better pressure, which is going to allow you to recover better. And this is what the study is kind of saying, even if it's not really looking at this. The science is all linking up here, the dots are all linking up here. Place that meme of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's got all the lines. I'll put that on here in 2 seconds. Okay, so we tested it at the start of the video. I showed you stood hands on top of my head and then hands on knees. Test it again right now, or go back to that part of the video and listen to me count you in for 5 breaths. Test it right now. Test it. Now you know the science. Now how does it feel? Compared to how you did it before, how you're doing it now. Do both, hands on top of the head, hands on your knees, and now tell me how you feel in the comments below. Because you will feel a difference. I'm very, very sure you'll feel a difference. If you don't feel a difference, then one thing I would say there is there's probably another breathing mechanics issue, which is leading to that compensation to where it's not making it as optimal for you. But for majority of people watching this video, 95% of people watching this video, you're gonna feel a difference, and you're gonna feel a lot easier to breathe in that position with your hands on your knees. So give it a go, let me know. Earlier in the week, when I showed a clip of another creator, another coach, giving this exact advice to a child, saying, don't do that, in this like really like urgent, strong, put down kind of manner of don't do this. The reason why I reacted to that on my For You page and then felt the need to do content around this, do this YouTube video, was because it is wrong advice, and I understand the kind of underlying principles of body language to your opponent, but I think that's getting caught up with how to recover optimally, and because they're being tied together, you're being taught to recover poorly but then show you aren't fatigued, which is just not true, because you're gonna fatigue in your sport, and you need a better strategy to figure out how to recover in the small moments so that you can get out of that fatigue a lot quicker. So that it seems juxtaposed of what you're trying to do. You want to make sure your players know how to stay aerobic for as long as possible, know how they can fight off fatigue when it's coming on or when they are getting fatigued, and you want to also show that you have got the can-do attitude to go out and win the game. Because they're being tied together, you're getting nothing. You're showing that you aren't tired to your opponent, but then you're not recovering as well, so the opponent's just going to be like, we didn't look tired, but he's pretty freaking easy compared to the first half now, because he's a lot slower, he's lost half a yard, so not really worried about this guy. Compared to if we're saying hands on knees is going to recover better, and you've got your hands on your knees, and then if that opponent's looking at you thinking, oh, this guy's going to be pretty easy in the second half, and when you're swinging it past them, you're full tilt going past them because you've recovered better, who cares what they think? And I think this is where I'm not saying that coaches are stupid that say this or that they don't know anything. I think that it's just coaching language that's become like habitual for you to learn as a coach, or you heard as a child and now you repeat, and we're not really giving it enough thought to think of actually that language needs to change, and it's 2 separate conversations of how to think mentality wise of how to win over your opponent in that kind of mental battle. But that's my 2 cents on it. Let me know what you think below. Maybe I'm completely wrong, it's my opinion, but I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm not saying I know everything, but let me know in the comments below. It'd be interesting to hear your opinion as well. Next time you're at training, next time you are playing football, next time you are reenacting any of the upcoming World Cup games, give this a go. Do your hands on your knees, do your hands on your head as well. Do both sides of the argument, see which one feels better, and once you feel better that you're doing your hands and your knees, hopefully this video will sink in a lot more. Again, no hate to anyone that's given this advice or anything like that. That's not what I'm posting about. That's not the kind of vibe I'm going for here. I just think I'm someone that does breath performance coaching for athletes. I'm someone that studied this. I'm someone that's part of the Royal Society of Biology and looked at this, and so I just think it's quite an interesting subject that we still talk about this as a coach, even today in 2026. So I just thought it was super interesting. So again, no hate to anyone or anything like that. Just as a video I wanted to cover on this subject because I think it's quite interesting. Hopefully now this all makes a lot more sense. Hopefully I've given you some interesting things to think about here and explain the science as well as I can without getting too boring, too deep into it all. And I hope you enjoy it. So with that being said, I think that's all I really need to say on the subject. I think I've covered all my bases there in terms of how these things are working. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the new subscribers. Before you go, make sure to like the video. It means a lot to me. It helps the algorithm. Also subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing but means the world to me if you subscribe to this channel, because I like to post this content, and having subscribers, having likes means that I can see that it's reaching someone out there and that it's worth posting. That being said, even if you don't, I'm still going to post anyway. I'm still going to be in this corner of the internet because it's fun, because I enjoy doing it. So yeah, so do all that great stuff with the algorithm. It means the world to me if you hit that subscribe button. It costs you absolutely nothing. And yeah, I hope you're all good. Enjoy the World Cup. Enjoy the weekend. And I'll see you all very soon. Yeah, peace.